So the first item on your agenda is an approval of minutes of June 17th. Oh, sorry, the Pledge of Allegiance.
Yeah, go ahead. Ready? I pledge allegiance
Allegiance
to the flag
The flag
United
of the
States,
of the United States of America,
to the republic
to the republic
for which it
for which it
stands,
stands,
stand
one nation,
one nation
under God,
under God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
liberty
with
and
liberty
justice
for all.
justice.
Your next item is the approval of the minutes of June 17th and the August 17th special meeting.
Okay, I need a motion.
So move.
All in favor?
Wait. I would like to ask for one change. This is on the regular minutes from whenever it was, June 17th, on the last page. Second little paragraph where I'm talking about the pension committee. It says, Mr. McPherson noted that the pension committee lowered their projection from 7 to 6 3/4. If that's what I said, then that's what it should say, but I don't think I said that. Because they didn't lower it, they're recommending that it be lowered because we're the ones who have to set it.
They say you recommend.
Okay,
They recommended lowering their earnings projections from 7 to 6 3/4, comma, perhaps in 2 stages.
okay.
Pretty sure I
Okay.
did say that.
All right, Lauren, you got that?
Terry's actually on and she's doing your minutes for you
Terry.
today. Yep.
Thank you, Terry.
Okay, so you just need a vote on that motion.
Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I think I have to abstain. Didn't I miss one meeting, Lauren?
I think it was just a special meeting, Jean.
Yeah, the 17th. Yes, you
So
did
I-
miss that.
So I have to abstain from that.
Okay.
Okay, motion
Yep.
passes. Good, next agenda item.
Chairman's comments,
None. Next.
finance member comments.
Yeah, I have one quick one, and it will be quick. I'm thinking that back several years ago, that there was a practice, not a regulation, but a practice that if somebody wanted a significant special appropriation, then it had to come before this board twice. Once as to put on notice, get ready for it, and then the second time would be when we would actually vote on it. And of course, we would not adhere to that if there was an emergency or for some grant funding timeline we had to adhere to. But we haven't done that lately, and I would just like to have it.
Yeah, we could do that. We could do it in 2 ways. We could, if it comes before us, we don't feel we're ready to vote on it, we could table it till the following meeting, or we could ask that any, as you said, significant requests are done in 2 stages. So either way, I'm fine with. I think it is important, as long as there's no emergency and no urgency in us doing it, I have no problem with trying to do it over 2 meetings so people have time to absorb it, ask questions, and get some additional information if they need it. Does anyone else object to that?
Can we just define and quantify what significant means, please?
Yeah, I can't remember exactly what the number was, but it's probably 50 or 75 or maybe even 100. I can't recall.
So any
Stacy.
request over 100,000?
Sure.
Stacy, do you remember what that number was?
I don't remember that. Fillmore and I talked this morning. I don't remember that process since I've been here.
So
I mean,
Fillmore,
we
if I
try to
could
give
make
you a heads up.
If I could give you a suggestion, why don't we find out, maybe Stacy, if you could do a little poking around to see if you could find out what that number was, and at our next meeting we can, I think what Kenny's saying, right, is be a little more specific about what
Okay.
that number is going to be. I think that would be good so that we don't do anything quickly and then regret, not making it low enough or making it high enough. So if you're okay with that, Fillmore, I support it, but if you could just give us another meeting to kind of pull some numbers together and look at the history of what you're saying and see if we can come up with, as Kenny suggests, come up with a distinctive number. I think that would be good.
Yeah, that's perfectly fine. I did not expect that we would agree to it today, that we
Okay.
just throw it out there. But I
Yeah.
think that it's important. I wanted to make sure that Peggy heard this so that when we do it, that she could
Yeah.
pass this on to her staff so that they would not get blindsided at some future event.
Correct. I agree. I think anytime we can give people fair warning or just enough lead time so they can prepare, I think it's good. So I think it's a great discussion to have, and we'll have a little more detail around it. And then maybe we can, send a letter from the Board of Finance to the Board of Ed and the Board of Selectmen, just stating that this is going to be a new procedural, well, not new, but maybe reinvented procedural, tactic that we want to use moving forward.
That's fine. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, any other member comments? Okay, Lauren, what's next?
Citizen comments, there are none. The next item is discuss and take action to approve a special appropriation request from the Public Works Department in the amount of $24,481.98 to replace a 2008 Ford Escape hybrid SUV.
Okay, so we're gonna move it first and then we can discuss it. Can I get a motion?
Fillmore moves it. Is there a second?
Second.
Ken?
Okay, discussion. I think we have, who's on the line with us today?
John is on the meeting with you.
Okay, John, do you want to explain this to us?
Sure. So this is, you may recall, I think it was just a week or two ago, there was a special appropriation for replacement of a admin vehicle that had a engine failure, and it was kind of due for replacement, so it wasn't feasible to repair. This is actually a similar situation. It's an admin vehicle, Ford Escape, used by the health department, and this vehicle experienced an engine failure essentially, and the mechanics looked at it and determination was made that it would need to be replaced. The engine would need to be replaced. This vehicle is 12 years old, and it has about 145,000 miles on it. So it's not feasible for repair, really. So we're looking to replace it, the old Ford Escape with the new Ford Escape under the state bid, and it's the price is $24,481.
Okay, any questions from board members?
Yeah, John, I assume this was in the CIP, but maybe it's being, accelerated a bit, or what's the story with that?
It's not in the CIP right now because the entire fleet is being evaluated essentially by an outside consultant, which is what the CIP committee requested be done before we present a final replacement schedule. So, but what I do have is basically a ranking of all vehicles in the fleet that, and this particular vehicle was up next, right behind the one that we just received a special appropriation for. So this admin vehicle on my ranking list was next up for replacement of all the admin vehicles.
Is the vehicle like an absolute necessity because of a replacement of one that went down, or?
Yes, it is. It's replacing a 2008 Ford Escape. It's driven by the health director. It's used on a daily basis.
No, but
Yeah.
the 2008 went away?
Yes, it's, well, we have it in our possession, but it's not feasible to repair. So the
Got it.
plan, actually, I'm wrong about that. We actually, the old Ford Escape was auctioned along with a couple other vehicles that that were due to be displaced, basically to be auctioned off. So that one was also
But
put
were
in
they,
with,
were they
John.
auctioned off though because they did not work properly, or they were, damaged or inoperable?
yeah, those were inoperable. They had been replaced, and they were so that instead of having them traded in for what would have ended up being probably a couple $100 of trade-in value, they were auctioned.
So John, this is replacing the Ford Escape that's already been auctioned off? Is that what you're
Yeah.
saying? All right.
Correct.
Sounds
So,
good.
yeah, all right. That's where I was going to, John. It's just like, so you had 5 cars, you auctioned off 2, you already replaced 1, and you're looking to replace the other. Is that correct? So you're getting
Yeah.
back to your total fleet of 5. I made the number up.
Yes, that's correct.
Could
I'm
I
good.
ask a question? We know we have a fleet of cars, correct? And I'm not sure the organization of it, but are these cars that are specifically assigned to certain employees, are they only assigned as they sign them out if they need them? And are these cars that they take back to their houses, or they stay and they drive to work and then get them? Because are they getting overused? I guess is my question.
I don't believe they're overused. So that we have vehicles that in the admin fleet that are either, some are assigned to directors that use them on a regular basis. For instance, I have a Ford Escape that is assigned to me that I use at work every day. And those ones that are assigned, they also are brought home. They're for use for commuting, obviously, to work and back.
Okay.
But I don't think there's any I don't believe there's any abuse of that or
Okay.
they're overused in any way.
Okay. Just checking.
There's also a mileage policy, from what I understand, John, that Deb had instituted about, allowable commutable miles to use a town vehicle for commuting. So I don't know the exact details of it, but all of these policies.
That's something to look at, Peggy, because if an
Yeah.
employee lives an hour away, I don't understand how that's part of, the use of the vehicle would be on campus, they get to work, they take the vehicle. If you live local, I can understand. So I guess that's just something I would like some more clarity on moving forward.
Yeah,
and
I think the policy is there's a mileage distance that's allowable, but all of these policies are going to be reviewed as part of this fleet
Yep.
study that we're doing. I know that was requested by the board, and we actually, I just think, signed the contract for this guy to get going on it. So we'll have that
Terrific.
for the end of the year, and that'll include looking at the assumptions that go into our fleet replacement, as well as any policies that we have.
Terrific. Thank you. Any other board member comments?
Yeah, just a question. So what is, when was this car disposed of, John? So what is Trent or whoever else uses it been doing in the meantime?
It was I think it was like 3 or 4 weeks ago. It was right around when the storm of August 4th hit, and in the meantime, I believe he's sharing the vehicle with his staff. So I mentioned that the admin vehicles, some of them are assigned, but then there are also pool cars that are in the admin fleet that are used and signed out by staff. So I think they're just sharing a staff vehicle now. So it's a little it's more difficult, but they're getting by that way right now.
Yeah, I guess and I may be missing something, but if it wasn't in CIP, even though it's 12 years old, then I guess I'm wondering why it wasn't expected to be needing replacement sometime in the near future. And, could they make do, since the study is about to get underway, could they make do until the study is complete?
So I guess I'm going to
that-
follow up. I'm going to follow up with Justin. If they're making do right now and they're sharing these fleet cars, wouldn't it make more sense to wait?
I would argue differently just based on the discussions I had with Deb about this, because this has to do with the health department and, you know, given the significant demands on that department right now, they've, between Amanda and Trent, they've had issues having to share the car. So, and you know, we can talk more offline if you want a lot of the details of the specifics, but I think this is a necessary car. I think a department director, you know, should have an assigned car. And, you know, the other members of the department use the fleet cars, or they'll use the director's car at times. But I think we've just been, you know, we've had four, like to Justin's point, something's wrong with the assumptions that we had used before, because this is the fourth car this year that is over 10 years old, has well over 100,000 miles, and has blown up on us, the fourth vehicle that we
Okay.
had to do this. So that's why I
Right.
think that you're absolutely right, that going forward, we got to have a better program and a better way to
Okay.
estimate and plan for this.
I guess the
Okay.
only other thing I would say to Justin's point is that if we knew this was coming, why wasn't it part of the normal CIP process?
It
Because I
was
think
part
we're
of the
doing the study.
process. It definitely was part of the process. It was in a list. I think it was originally scheduled for 2026. And things happen, as we all know, all of a sudden, you know, things could happen with cars. Unfortunately, the plan's kind of been paused a little bit over the last couple of years on purpose by the CIP committee and the boards, waiting for this study to happen. So, you know, we put things on hold. We weren't purchasing things as we had originally planned a few years ago because we wanted this study. So it's a multiple of things why this just came up all of a sudden.
Yeah, the 2026 year is a little concerning that we were that far off from a replacement.
It's been pushed off. Like I said, the last 2 years, we kind of put a pause on the entire program in general.
Hmm.
So things just kept getting pushed out because we were waiting for this study to get completed. In the meantime, everything was getting older and used.
Yeah, I think that was Kenny. We were trying not to do anything for the last couple of years until this study. And, you know, because we don't want to do what we're doing right now, is get something and then find out we don't need it. So I think that was the reason. But
Yeah, no,
I
the
think,
2026 number was the one that just caught me a little off guard. That's all.
yeah, no, I hear you. So I think, Peggy, I think I hear what you're saying. I think you're hearing what we're saying is that, you know, during the study, our hope is that things will become a little bit more, you know, the policies will be tightened up, the use of those cars will be tightened up, so that, you know, and it will fall into this plan that's being evaluated. But that's our concern. I think you understand where we're coming from. We're being very
Yeah.
careful financially based on what's going on. Sounds like you are on top of it, so we appreciate that. But I think it's just a message moving forward from the Board of Finance that we're concerned about spending, and we're trying to figure out ways, as anybody would, you know, try to figure out ways where we can save. So thank you for that. Any other questions from board
Yeah.
members?
I have a question. Where are we, what pocket is the money proposed to come from? Contingency or fund balance or what?
Stay.
You
Or
want
is
to
it-
use, do you want to use contingency at this point?
How much is
or-
in contingency?
The 71,000. We haven't touched it yet this year.
Yeah, why don't we take, if no one objects, let's take it out of contingency.
Did we use it for the other vehicle, Billy's vehicle?
All right, any other questions, comments, thoughts? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Abstention, motion carries. Thank you. Lauren, next.
Next is discuss and take action to approve a donation from Neighbor to Neighbor in the amount of $20,000 to be used for the COVID relief fund.
I need a motion,
So move.
second,
Second.
discussion. All in favor? Oh, sorry, go.
I have just a comment or two. Number one, I think it's wonderful that Neighbor to Neighbor is doing this, and Scott, please convey our thanks to Laurie and the great job she's doing. I did have a question. I believe, according to the letter, this will be a total of 50 grand that they have put into this program. I guess this is, and correct me if I misunderstand, but this is to be used as $500 cash payments to families in need. So that suggests that there's enough money there for 100 families. Is that, do we have, do you have an opinion as to whether we have more than that, or is 100 enough, 100 people enough in this town?
So we developed a program from scratch to disperse this money, and we worked very closely with Lori around what the intent of Neighbor to Neighbor was truly, and having this money get out there. We originally developed a program that had income guidelines that was very stringent, and feedback was, well, we had maybe one application in the course of 2 weeks. So we worked it, and again worked with Lori Heflin. So what we have developed now is a program where people apply. It's a pretty simple application. We ask that people identify how the pandemic has impacted them financially, and how would they intend to use the money. And wherever we've had a question on these applications, we've then followed up to have conversations with people that are applying. So far, so this is going since April 1st. We've had 87 applications. We did develop our program where people could reapply again because we didn't know how quickly this would go. So we built in a 30-day period in which they could apply again. So we overall received 87 applications to date. We've assisted 51 separate households. We do distribute this in increments. So if you're a single applicant, it's 300. For a couple, it's 4, and for a family, it's 5. Out of those 87 applications, 30 of them are from families that we've never worked with before, so they weren't identified as previous clients under social services. So these are people that were, you could assume, were doing financially okay, not needing kinds of assistance until the pandemic hit. We've continued to run the program. We've been in constant contact with Lori, so we give her weekly updates on how the money's being dispersed. And we're going to continue to run this program. We have had people express, particularly parents express to us a concern about the cost of daycare types of programs. So like, as you all, I'm sure, know about the kids going back to school for hybrid, there are families that are in tough situations where, either they have to stay home from work in order to support their kids with the distance learning. In some cases, it's an issue with work. In some cases, it's an issue that they're concerned that their children aren't receiving enough support. So it's more about how their student learns. So we are looking at how we may develop some type of a subsidy program to help offset some of the costs of those types of programs. This is all very new, so I can't tell you how that's going to look. Fillmore, right now we've expended $37,100 of that 50 grand. So we know where we are in terms of what we have. And as we approach that $48,000 limit, we'll be back in touch with Neighbor to Neighbor and talk about, if we may ask for another donation, or if we, run the program to the end and look at what other needs are there at that time.
Thank you, Scott.
So Scott, has that, you said 87 and 51 have been provided some funds. Does that mean that people have been denied, or are they just still being processed or reviewed?
Oh, no, so that 51 of the 87 applications, that represents 51 different households. So we've had people within the 87 applications that reapplied after 30 days.
So has anyone been denied, or?
No one's been, no, we've denied no one. There's been a couple of applications that we did get in touch with the applicant and clarified some of the things that they asked for help with, and we were satisfied with their answers, and we assisted them.
Right.
So, and by the way, I should tell you, most of the applicants identified help with bills in general and rent. Of the bills, there were often grocery bills, medical bills, clothing for children. Those tended to be the things that were most often identified.
Thank you.
Sounds
Scott,
good
you
to
guys
me.
are, yeah, Scott, you guys are doing amazing work, and I know this is an incredibly difficult time, and just know how much we appreciate how much you're helping the community, and this donation is allowing you to do that. So again, our heartfelt thanks to you and your group.
I appreciate that. There aren't enough superlatives for neighbor to neighbor. I don't even know how to say thanks to them, because we just couldn't do most of what we're doing. I mean, that's just this particular donation and how we're doing this program. That doesn't include, we've distributed 138 gift cards for food, and those are funded on a separate donation from Neighbor to Neighbor. We've had 85 gift cards that were given from other organizations that have gone out. So we really are quite fortunate to live in this community with so many generous people.
You know, it's amazing, and I don't think people realize, they think of Madison as not having this population that needs, and we are so grateful to have Neighbor to Neighbor and Youth and Family Services. So thank you again.
Appreciate that.
Any other questions or comments from board members? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. Lauren, next.
Thank you all.
Your next item is to discuss and take action to approve line item transfers totaling $22,836.
I need a motion, and then we can discuss it.
So moved.
Second? Did I get someone?
Second. Yeah.
Good. Discussion. Any questions on,
You're on mute, Stace.
Stacy,
Muted.
You're on mute, Stacy.
Sorry, I had the line item transfer in front of me. I wasn't looking at the video. So there's 4 line item transfers that make up the 22,000. It's pretty much just cleaning up line items from 1920. The one bigger item of the 22 was 13,000 that was moved over to the police overtime replacement, and that was related to overtime due to COVID, which was much higher than the 13,000, but Jack was able to find the other funds within his own line items. So what we did is just to clean up the PD department overall as we moved 13,000 from the salary adjustment accounts. So we were able to find everything within line item transfers and not ask for a special appropriation. And Jack's here if you have any
Great.
questions.
Thank you very much.
great. Thank you. That's awesome.
We hope that everybody takes that approach when it comes to
Mhm.
at their budgets.
Yeah. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. Thank you, Jack. Lauren?
Number 8, review CIP committee process for fiscal year 2021-2022.
Thank you. Stacy, are you taking the lead on that?
I can. I know Peggy's here if she wants to chime in. We're still getting information from the departments. Unfortunately, the July 1st deadline didn't make much of an impact on some of the departments. It's been a little
Yeah.
crazy though, I have to say, people have been busy this spring and summer with everything going on. So hopefully we will have everything in. I know Peggy set up a couple meetings for the end of this week and Monday. My office, once we get final submissions, will need about a week to pull everything together. So once we get that, we'll pull everything together. And then I know Peggy wants to look at everything and share it with her board. And then the goal is to get it to CIP for the normal deadline in October.
Okay, so I guess basically, we're hoping it's gonna go. If it doesn't, we're all gonna be a little more flexible. We understand what's going on. So I appreciate the heads up on that. As long as the goal is, and it's just a goal, to get it to us at a regular schedule, that's great. And if not, we can certainly revisit that. We can certainly be flexible based on what's happened. Okay?
Yeah,
Any other discussion on that item? We're good, Peggy.
I was
You
just
go
gonna
ahead.
say that, just real quickly, that we are working, and it's a little fluid, but we're absolutely trying to reach that deadline. So no
Terrific.
worries, we'll have something, okay?
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Any other comments from board members? Okay, Lauren, next.
Review financials.
Stace?
Yeah, I don't really have anything for this meeting
Yeah.
unless you, anybody has any questions for me.
Board
had a-
members?
I had a very quick one. I looked at the tax collection sheet and it looks like that compared with previous years, we're behind it, but I guess that's because of the state allowed postponement till October. Or-
Correct. Yeah, I looked at that as well, and I think this time last year, we were at like 53%. This year, we're at about 43%, but we knew that was coming. It's higher than when I had done my cash flow projections, when we decided to defer the interest for the payments for the 3 months. We've actually gotten in more than what my projections are, so we've. met
Oh,
the
that's good.
projection. Yeah, so I don't see any concern there.
Good. I think that's a good point. I think we should keep monitoring that, Stace.
Yep.
Fillmore, thank you for bringing that up. I think that's something, but it's good to hear that although it's not good and behind last year, it's better than what we had anticipated at this point. So that's good news. And hopefully that'll be a trend that'll keep going. But I think that's maybe an agenda item we keep on looking at every meeting. Just to
Okay.
monitor. Okay. Thank you, Fillmore. Any other comments, questions? Okay, Lauren,
Next is, liaison reports and report from First Select Woman.
okay. We'll start with the liaisons. Any board members? I know things are a little crazy now. Are there any other updates?
Just 2 seconds. I'm a liaison with the senior center, and because Scott was on, I would echo what we said for Scott's group. They've been working in conjunction a lot with the senior center and just doing incredible things around town, helping seniors and helping everyone they can. And just give them a shout out that both groups are doing incredible working together and in their own, separate works to help so many people in town. It's been great to watch.
That's awesome. And I think it is the spirit of collaboration that I think we've all witnessed during this time has been incredible. And the people that benefit are our community. So I want to echo what you just said, Justin, and just say how incredibly proud I am of everybody and how much I'm hoping that spirit of collaboration continues across all departments.
All right, and Jean, just to, as a liaison to the police department, same thing goes for Jack and his entire team of everything that they've been doing for the community within this very challenging time. And, he goes above and beyond to try to make sure that he does everything he can to watch every penny so that he can stay within budget and optimize what he has to work with the resources that he has. So kudos to him and his team as well.
Yeah, and I think that's also, I think Kenny, you touched on it. I think that's a model in which we're hoping to see across all departments. And as you said, Jack's people have been on the front line and they have done a phenomenal job, and our numbers are down, and our community is starting to flourish again. So, thank you again for all that. You've gotten us through the summer, or getting us through the summer. We're not there yet. And the officers have just been wonderful. So thank you for that. And thank you for your, Jack, I think continue, your continued foresight and looking into the future, into our finances and knowing that we're in tough times and just doing your part to help us. And I really appreciate that. Thank you. Any other comment, liaison, before we get to Peggy? All right, Peg, you're up.
I'll keep it brief. I think first thing is my following on this conversation about the budget is my hope is to come and give a quarterly report to the Board of Finance about where we are on this year's budget. Obviously, there's been some unforeseen things that have happened. The last couple of months when the original budget was voted on back in and approved, I think in April or May. So I would want to go through and talk about what those expenditures might be and how we hope to try to cover them within the funding that we have, but there might be some things that would be impossible for us to do. So I want to be ahead of that rather than waiting to the end of the year, and talk about a little bit some of those areas. So that would be either in the September or October meeting. And we can kind of go through that and so you can see where things are.
Yeah.
Because we've kept, you know, very, I think, tracked everything and tried to keep a lid on everything as much as possible. The second piece will have to be about the storm costs. You know, there's obviously going to be some costs that we might need a special appropriation for Tropical Storm Isaias. So those numbers are still getting kind of formulated, but that's something that we can talk about in the September meeting for sure.
Okay.
And keeping in mind, so maybe this counts as my update and giving you advance notice, but about a possible need for a special appropriation. I mean, the good thing about both of the budget issues are that they are things that we're hoping to see some money come back in from with the tropical storm. It would be FEMA reimbursement eventually. And with some of the expenses for the other departments, some of it will be covered by COVID reimbursements. Not all of it, but we hope to get some of that back. So, and Stacy has been fantastic on staying on top of all that. We put a quarterly submission in for the end of June, and there'll be another one going in at the end of the next quarter for reimbursement for certain expenses. So I'll have more details on that on the next meeting. The third thing I just want to mention is some of these studies, because you know, there was a long list that came out of the budget process that I think people had been expecting to be undertaken. So the vehicle study will be started soon. I have I think I just have to sign the contract. There was also the review of Madison Youth and Family Services to just look at more in terms of their clinical services programming. That has actually been finalized now, and Scott Cochran has been involved as part of that. So that's the second study that had been requested. And then the third one had been, we kind of talked about doing a broad public safety review of all our public safety services, fire department, ambulance. And that was kind of had spun out of the ambulance budget concerns and model concerns that I know this board had struggled with for the last couple of budget cycles. So I had wanted to do a broader survey, and we kind of went down that path in March, but let's face it, COVID threw a wrench into a lot of that. I mean, we first of all had a hard time finding a adequate consultancy that could do this kind of work on such a broad reach. And I think secondly, the last thing we wanted to do was be disruptive to our public safety teams while they're in the middle of a pandemic and then obviously a busy summer season. So I kind of held back on that. And then in just talking internally, think that the core question was the ambulance model. And so I'm now what I want to do is just go back to that ambulance study that had been talked about, I know, during the previous administration. Keep it focused on that. It'll be more less intrusive in terms of our public safety operations. I spoke to Sam about this, as well as Chris Bernier. And so we were going to try to start moving forward on an RFP process for just the ambulance services. So I wanted to just make sure that that makes sense to you. I just think the other study was going to be probably very expensive. It was going to be very comprehensive, but it just seemed problematic from, you know, everything that's been going on with COVID and all the other emergencies.
So I agree with you, Peggy, and I know I don't have 100% behind me, but I believe that the issue with the ambulance needed more attention. It needed it quicker, and it, you know, it's less, I believe it's, as you said, it's a simpler study to do than to do everything together. So I appreciate the fact that you're moving that forward. And I think for the ambulance people, it's really important that we get this done. And I'm not saying we shouldn't do the other piece of the study at some point, but I appreciate from my own personal view that you're moving ahead with that, because again, that's been going on for years. And I just think it's so important. So,
Gene, you know, from my perspective, I would prefer the broader approach, because I just think that you have to look at it in its totality. I would just ask Peggy if there's any way that you can, because we don't necessarily, I think, have to impact emergency service when we do the study. We were looking more for market-based information around response times, what is, you know, standard in the industry, other towns that are similar size and makeup of Madison, you know, what their emergency services look like. So I don't know that it would really impact any of our emergency services folks or resources at all to go out and get that market-based data. to do a comparative against what other people are doing and how they're doing it and what the cost baselines are for those types of emergency service providers. To provide us with the education we need, not only as a board, but as a town to make the right decisions as it relates to how we fund and how we manage these things moving forward. Especially if we can leverage some of the shared resources across multiple towns in our area, right, to reduce costs. I know that that the Chief Drum has spearheaded some stuff on his side. We really try to see if there was a model we could leverage to help reduce costs further. So I am still a proponent of the broader survey. I think it's something that we need to do as a town. And I also think that it's something we can do without impacting any of the level of service that's provided to the people of the town by the different entities. So any market-based information you could provide as part of that analysis is going to be certainly helpful for us.
Yeah,
Well,
I think for me, Kenny, I think the bottom line is this: the ambulance cannot survive without our financial support. And without that, they could go under. And I need to, from my own personal opinion, I need to know what that number is. I think we've all agreed that there are things that we can share, but I think from the last several conversations we had, that we felt strongly that having our own ambulance would be in the best interest of the people in this town. So therefore, the regionalization of that, I'm not sure was in the forefront. So,
It wasn't in the forefront, Gene, but it could have been part of the conversation to understand what the costs were and what the benefits were. And that was the goal of what we were trying to accomplish.
Well, I think from speaking from someone who's been around on these boards forever and have watched the ambulance continually be told that they're going to get the study and we're going to know what this number is. And every year we bring them in and every year it's a fight. And
That's not because of us though, Gene.
No, I'm not arguing that, Kenny. I'm just saying that at some point, the ambulance is a huge problem and we have to know what that number is. And I agree that all the emergency services should be looked at, but not at the expense of letting the ambulance go again another year, waiting to see if we can find somebody who has the expertise to do both the ambulance and the fire department. And it's going to convolute what we need to do for the next budget cycle for the ambulance. We cannot keep telling them they have to operate.
I agree with you. I agree with you. But again, it comes down to, again, what the costs are associated with those different emergency services. Listen, we talked about this over and over again, and when we made our recommendation in writing to the Board of Selectmen that this is something that we needed to have done. So I just think changing it after the fact is unfortunate.
Well,
wait a second. That was actually, Ken, it was my idea to do a comprehensive.
No, not really. This was going on long before you got here, Peggy.
Well, because I was told ambulance, and I kept getting information on ambulances. And then as we talked and through the budget process, we realized they are all, to your point, they're all interconnected. And there are a lot of other big picture issues affecting that, including regionalization. And I think that I agree with you. My thought would be, I agree, ideally, that's what we would want to do. But I'm looking at now, we've lost time, and we do need to have, I think, something to Gene's point, to help us make decisions during the budgeting process for the ambulance. And I think what we could do is do this in a phased approach, and have a phase 1 and a phase 2. My concern is that there's a lot of specialty firms that we found that focus just on like EMS. And there was only a very short list of those broader firms, and we couldn't even get a response from them when we reached out to them in March and April, because you can imagine everybody was like swallowed up on consultants for COVID. So if there's an ability to have like a phased approach with the commitment that we will look more broadly as step 2, then at least we can get this done by budget time.
Sure.
And then my other thought is, what I'd like to do, and we did this effectively with the town facility study, I'd like somebody from the Board of Finance to be as part of that RFP process and selection process. I know Justin participated in the facility study, and I think, because I want to make sure that when we do these studies, we don't get more questions, right? So that everybody knows that we've been as comprehensive as possible and that we'll answer everybody's questions. And so I lay that out there that if we move forward with just the ambulance, or we do it in a phased approach, and then if we can have a representative from the Board of Finance participate in that process, I think that would be great. And
I think
if you want
that
to do it,
sounds
Ken.
fair. Yeah, no, that sounds fair. Kenny, I know it's not ideal, but I just feel like I want to get I think what Peggy just said is true. We can do it as a phased in approach. We're not saying we're not going to do it, but the short term to get us through next year's budget, I am really concerned about next year's budget, and we have to know where our numbers are, and we have to know what needs we have to meet. And I really am concerned if we do not have some kind of study done for this ambulance. It's one of those pieces of our budget during a very difficult budget season that we're going to be struggling with. So if we agree to do it in a phased in, because I'm all for doing the ambulance also, but I just don't think in the short term, it's a piece of what we need for the next year's budget.
So can I just add something?
Yeah, sure.
So this whole study, it's going to be a study of the EMS delivery service to the town, right? So it includes multiple agencies. It includes the dispatch center, the emergency medical dispatch. It includes the police department's role as the first responder. It includes both fire departments' roles as supplemental first responders. And then, of course, as the ambulance is the transport and paramedic service. So it does touch all the agencies, but it's just going to be focused on the medical, emergency medical service. It's not going to go on fire service delivery or police delivery and all that other stuff. So that's what it's focused on. This study is going to be focused on, and I think that you'll get a comprehensive, idea of where we're at to deliver emergency medical services to the town, and the adequate number of staffing and everything else.
Okay, thanks.
So if that, I don't know if that's, so it does, it does touch multiple agencies. It's not just going to be the ambulance.
Yeah, and all the agencies are going to be involved in the RFP process. So I think, Ken, maybe once you see, and if you want to participate in this to make sure that the questions that you have are going to get answered by the study, that might give you better comfort, about what this is going to do.
Yeah, I'm happy to help out any way I can.
And I think at some point we probably should sit down and really explain to both boards how the emergency services work in the town, because I don't think both boards have an idea of, good idea of how it actually works. That's just my opinion.
Okay. All right. Any other comments about this study? All right, and Peggy, thank you for the offer to have a Board of Finance member on it. I think we would really appreciate that, to be part of that. As that gets closer, please let me know.
Okay, will do.
I had a question. You talked about the reimbursement that people have gotten. Stace, the Board of Ed, I know they withdrew their request for a special appropriation. How much money in total have they received in reimbursements?
So currently, through the CARES Act, through the state of Connecticut, they have been 723,000 has been identified for costs related to the reopening of schools. So we knew for a while, for months, that they were getting 77,000. And then on Friday, we found out they were getting another 646,000. So those funds
great.
will be set aside for the reopening.
Good. All right, so they'll go through that before they ask for any special appropriations.
That is the plan, I believe, right now. Yes.
Excellent. All right. Anything else? Lauren, anything else?
Sorry, I was muted. Citizens' comments. There are no citizens on the line, so you just need a motion to adjourn.
I need a motion to adjourn. Second? Second?
Fillmore's raising his hand.
Okay, perfect. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, we're adjourned. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
See you later.